capital. This is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reported tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, World Pension Summit Africa opens in Abuja. President Jonathan restates his administration's commitment to protection of pension and retirement benefits. World Bank launches partnership initiative aimed at reducing the number of Nigerians living below poverty line to 3% within the next 16 years. Hope rises for the release of the abducted Chibok schoolgirls. Coordinator of National Information Center confirms arrests by security intelligence, provide leads for the rescue operation. And Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi regrets the trial and imprisonment of 3 Al Jazeera journalists by Egyptian courts.
And on business news tonight, Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Ms. Aruma Ote, calls for integration between states and local government on the contributory pension scheme.
And on sports news tonight, Falconets leave for Canada ahead of the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup.
We begin in Abuja, the nation's federal capital, where the World Pension Summit Africa Special opened today, with the organizers harping on the need for African governments to collaborate with pension fund professionals for social security. While declaring the summit open, President Goodluck Jonathan promised that his administration will continue to protect the current reforms of the scheme in Nigeria. The summit, which also aims to redefine the future of the pension industry in Africa, is being used as a tool to provide solutions to long-term investment opportunities.
First World Pension Summit in Africa,
risky things,
and gathered here are the pension fund administrators and custodians across the world. Seated amongst them are also some of the cabinet members of the federal government of Nigeria and some governors.
Africa.
The event begins with an insight into the focus of the summit, and this was conveyed by the organizers of the forum.
During this summit, we shall attempt to set out what could be considered a set of challenges that pension professionals and regulators around Africa must surmount in order to engender the evolution of a retirement pension system that will be rooted in our collective social consciousness. We need systems that are relevant to the fundamental needs of our continent and which are dynamic enough to initiate and also respond to developmental challenges facing the continent in an increasingly interdependent global economy.
This first summit will give attention to the future of African pension schemes, dilemmas on investment policies, for example, investment in infrastructure and real estate. We talk about risk management, social security reform, regulatory issues, reputation of pensions and technology in pension, and much more.
Africa is young. Africa is eager. Africa is dynamic and innovative, and by having these kind of meetings, we'll make the difference. Meetings where we share our expertise and developments and align best solutions. And in my view, Africa could really evolve fast as a state-of-the-art continent regarding social security and retirement management.
The coordinating Minister of the Economy and Minister of Finance, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, seized the opportunity to highlight the need to fund economic growth with the growing pension asset.
We are yet to fully harness the potential of pension funds as a source of development, especially in infrastructure where the financing gaps are huge and where long-term financing is required. With over $70 trillion in assets in 2013, institutional investors like pension funds have the muscles to invest in real productive assets and to drive growth.
Next, President Goodluck Jonathan mounts the stage to declare the summit open. In his message to Africa, he illustrates with the example of Nigeria.
In 10 years of sustained policy innovation and meticulous management, these have facilitated confidence and credibility in our pension system and administration. It also strengthened our pension institutions as we transit from a deficit of about 2 trillion naira then, that's about $12.9 billion in 2004, to accumulate pension assets of over 4.21 trillion naira. As we commit to share experiences and seek growth, let me conclude by emphasizing that the protection of pension assets for the payment of retirement benefits as and when due should always be our paramount objective.
The World Pension in Africa is built to last 2 days. During this period, the professionals and government officials are expected to deliberate on regulatory issues for the adoption of best practice for the industry.
The World Bank has launched a new partnership strategy which is targeted at supporting the federal government's Vision 2020. The strategy, which covers a period of 2014 to 2017, is part of the bank's set target of reducing the number of persons living below $1 per day to 3% by the year 2030. The World Bank country representative in Nigeria, Ms. Marie-Francoise Marie-Nelly, who spoke at a news conference in Abuja, said the new partnership will focus on the poor and vulnerable in the country.
Government officials and members of the international organizations at a meeting to explore ways of developing the existing partnership between the World Bank and the federal government. In spite of recent rebasing of the nation's economy, which puts Nigeria as the largest economy in Africa, the country is still encountering some challenges of how to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor.
The idea with the new strategy is to build on these successes and acknowledging, of course, the areas of challenges, the importance of going faster to create more job opportunities for the expanding labor force, particularly for the youth, working more on the governance, building more on the governance, and of course we acknowledge the recent security challenges that the country is facing in the north.
But the challenges facing Nigeria are not peculiar to the country alone, as countries like China and India are facing difficulties of how to end poverty amidst its vast natural and human resources.
The fact that a country is the largest economy is just a fact. You know, the size of the economy is the size of the wealth of the country, and we happen to have that. It doesn't mean that that economy will not have problems. You can see that China is the second largest economy in the world, but China is still struggling with poverty.
Governor Idris Wada of Kogi State promised to key into the World Bank's partnership strategy. He said providing jobs and improving agriculture in the state would require the bank's technical and financial expertise.
The work that we have done with the World Bank has gone a long way to help us change the profile of Kogi State to a progressive state, a state that is transforming. In the area, our cooperation is the areas of stable crop processing zone, which is cardinal to the agricultural transformation agenda of the federal government. We are working closely on the Community and Social Development Agency project, which is touching lives at the grassroots level.
Experts believe that if followed to the letter, this initiative by the World Bank can reduce the country's unemployment and poverty levels and enable the government to address the problem of poor infrastructure in the country.
Global maternal mortality ratio dropped by 45% between 2000 and 2013, and an estimated 3.3 million deaths from malaria were prevented due to expansion of malaria interventions. This was contained in the United Nations Millennium Development Goals report for 2014, launched today by the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, in New York. Meanwhile, at a regional launch in Lagos, the Senior Public Information Officer of the United Nations Information Center, Envera Selimovic, said considerable progress has been made on MDG achievements, which varies across and within regions.
Barely a year to the target date of the MDGs, a formal presentation of the scorecard is ongoing. In attendance at the ceremony at the United Nations Information Center are representatives of the Lagos State Government, officials of the UN, non-governmental organizations, and members of the press, as well as students.
Now, whilst she was speaking,
What is the essence of the report and how is performance rated?
Talking about Millennium Development Goals and achievements, it is not something that we can say it's official, but we realized while discussing today NGO sector, governments, civil society, including media, that Nigeria done lots of good stuff, but there is a room for improvement.
This report, seeks to highlight, those areas that efforts are needed more, those areas where significant progress has been achieved, and in fact, statistics on what has been done.
The Lagos State Government applauds its commitment to meeting the requirements of the goals.
Amongst the 36 states, I think Lagos will rank one of the first 5 in the implementation process. So from this perspective, I would say Lagos has done very well.
The target date is by the corner, and yet some countries lag behind. Where lies their fate?
You are still having children dying from preventable diseases. You are still having now I mentioned of 300,000 women dying. So we are saying the MDGs, while we've made this progress this far, they are forming a base, like a foundation for the next set of goals. Because you cannot say you close about the MDGs. We still need to make effort to move on with the MDGs as they get incorporated in the Sustainable Development Goals.
The 8 Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, range from halving extreme poverty rates to stopping the spread of HIV/AIDS and providing universal primary education, all by the year 2015. This form a blueprint agreed to all by the world's countries and all the world's leading development institutions.
let me ask you,
In part 2 after the break, PDP and APC factions of the Edo State House of Assembly hold separate sessions. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.